I can hear something calling. It's calling me every day. If taking a chance is a crime, then I've got hell to pay. I've been walking the streets in my mind, trying to find a new day. Keep on searching until I will find, until I find a new way. I'm gonna say something, I hope you don't mind. It's time to rearrange. I walk round in circles, I'm going nowhere. It's time to make a change.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I am your host, Charles Wallace, and welcome to the Bare Essentials podcast. As we continue on our journey to build a stronger community, I'm very excited to share with you all the Kindness Alliance, which is a unique free of charge advertising initiative looking to support businesses that share in our core values. Each episode will look to spotlight a different member, celebrating their contributions and dedication to kindness. Would you like to get involved? Just visit the Kindness Alliance section on our website, www.thebareessentialspodcast.com, or just send me a message. And now, a huge thank you to this week's Kindness Alliance member.
Black Pad Coffee Company. Awesome coffee, supporting awesome dogs. Go grab some today at their website, www.blackpadcoffee.com.
Hey, Jonathan, how you doing today? Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Oh, look, thanks very much for having me, Charles. It's amazing. Thanks for getting up so early. I know it's quite early over there, but yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I try to have a mix of people on the show. Most of the time what happens is I see something or someone that resonates with me and I say, damn, I'm sure that he will resonate with the audience too. So in reality, and I'm sure people have figured this out about me, this is probably more selfish for me about interviewing all the cool people like yourself and trying to learn. So, but anyway, I think they learn also and they enjoy it. So before we jump in, I discovered you and saw some really cool things based on your social media. Could you introduce yourself to the audience for those who may not be familiar with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Charles. I'm Jonathan Eddery. I'm 45 years young. I'm an associate consultant for a company called Atkins Realis. Well, we can touch on that if you like. It's a fantastic role, and happy to discuss that in some detail. Yeah. So I'm living in the UK, Charles. Born in Ireland, moved over when I was 8, and I've been living over here ever since. So yeah, beautiful part of the world.
Fantastic. I guess I want to definitely touch on your career. Some of the things I've seen with you, you have an interesting career. You're doing some extremely motivational things. Fitness looks like it's paramount to you, and some of the things that I see you doing in regards to fitness. I know also that you are involved in some mental health advocacy, things like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting topics we will touch on. That being said, how about we start about your career evolution? How would you reflect on being a police officer and also moving into technical security?
I mean, that was very tricky. So I was in the police for 9 years. Did a number of different things in the police, which I absolutely loved. Those guys and girls do a phenomenal job. It's particularly tricky over here at the moment in the UK. As you know, Charles, the UK police officers, they don't all carry firearms. And I was one of those officers that didn't. We carried mainly taser and things like that. So I was involved in method and special tactics for 6 years. So predominantly public order, method of entry, first man through the door, keep the door in type thing, which I absolutely loved. A number of different things like advanced driver, pursuit management, some plainclothes stuff as well, some undercover stuff. So yeah, I absolutely love that. And then at about the time that I was coming out of the police, I was going through a divorce. It was a really tricky time for me especially with mental health and things. And I pretty much started again. And that was quite a moment in my life, I suppose. Quite a reflective, what do I do now? Was the last 9 years in the police force wasted? Because it's very difficult to try and place that into a civilian role. Even though you might think you've got fantastic experience and knowledge, actually, there's nothing on paper from a qualification perspective that you can really bring it across into the security industry. So yeah, I started again, worked for some fantastic companies, worked for Oxford University for 3 years, got to work with their in-house team looking after the 39 colleges that make up Oxford University. So got to see all of those buildings, just phenomenal amount of history there. Love that. Worked for the government for a couple of years, worked in retail. That's just an absolute beast, retail. The guys that, do the front line every day, they're just phenomenal work. And then, I think the turning point for me, Charles, was technology. So I came out, took 6 months off, and then I was offered a role for TJX Europe, who own HomeSense and TK Maxx. I think they're TJ Maxx over there. Mm. And that was pretty much designing their stores from a CCTV access control security perspective. And that was really the turning point for me. So now I find myself at a phenomenal company, Atkins Realis, as an associate consultant. I work predominantly in the aviation sector. I work with some fantastic people. I always feel like I'm the idiot in the room, because the people I work with are blast engineers, structural engineers, architects, and together we design airports to make them safer from terrorism attacks. So yeah, that's kind of a run through of my career. I've had some achievements. I've recently became a chartered security professional in the UK, looking to get my RSES, which is Registered Security Engineer and Specialist certification. I was the 2023 Outstanding Security Consultant of the Year, and I've been a finalist in a number of awards. So yeah, so very lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah, you definitely have. And, I had to laugh a little bit when you mentioned TJ Maxx, because like legit, my family says when my wife and my daughter go to TJ Maxx, I kind of get really nervous what that's going to be. So you mentioned something about designing the security for airports to make them safer. I mean, considering these last 15, 20 years or so, what it's been like, I mean, Jonathan, that's extremely important and paramount. How do you guys go about that? Like, what do you look at to try to make airports safer? And do you feel like a lot of progress has been made in that area, over the last 15 to 20 years?
Yeah, it's a great question, Charles. It's one that I get asked quite often. I need to be, and I'm sure you'll understand this, Charles, I need to be very careful what I say in respect of the lens that we go to. So if I kind of summarize, you'll understand why. Because obviously, if we give out all of the information, then it can be circumventing things. So I'd say one of the questions you asked was, is it progressing? Absolutely. I think with every terrorism threat that we get, I mean, we just have to look back at this, the Paris attacks. So I also work in a number of different other environments. So like rail, for instance. So ASIAD, Aviation Security and Airport Development, specifically for airports, but a lot of it will come from kind of similar environments. So maybe from SIDOS and rail. So yeah, the progress has been great. I think it's been very, very positive. So we look at previous incidents. We look at lessons learned from that. Now that could be how certain materials react when that type of incident happens. And then we try and design out ways of reducing the risk to passengers and things like that. I think what's been probably paramount in the industry is the integration now between structural engineers, architects, designers, there was always kind of an interaction there to start off with, but we were never really taken seriously, Charles. You know, security is always kind of for want of a better phrase, the ugly sister when it comes to to projects and things. But actually now, because of the chartership, because we do have a seat at the table, because of the way the world is changing and evolving, we're taken seriously, thankfully, and yeah, it's a great privilege to be involved in that, and it gives me a sense of purpose as well. So I hope you can understand that I can't go into too much detail. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I appreciate the answer, and I do respect the way you had to answer that question. So you mentioned about having a seat at the table and all these different teams. Could you maybe talk a little bit about, with those cross-functional teams, how does that play out as far as, from a leadership perspective? How do you handle the amount of people in the room?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will come down to experience and confidence and communication. I think it helps with the fact that, we're now recognized as chartered professionals. I think before, when you're sat in front of, chartered engineers, structural engineers, architects, I think potentially the respect level probably wasn't there some years ago. But now with the understanding of just how important it is to have us involved at the early stages. I'll give you a good example. So over here we have REBA stages in construction. So we have Royal Institute of British Architects. And from a very, very early stage, we are involved as security consultants in the design of any new project. And that could be a new building, it could be a new stadium, a new airport, new offices, government buildings, could be nuclear. And that forms the foundation of how we build certain things around it. So we might incorporate crime prevention through environmental design, looking at overt surveillance, looking at using natural infrastructure that will reduce costs, but will promote, good environmental issues, etc., and things like that. So how do I manage the different disciplines? I guess it's having the ability to listen and encouraging conversation around my discipline. Because once you get people invested and on board, and sometimes it's an educational piece, and then those conversations seem to flow a lot better. There's, in every business, there could be some egos there, etc. But it's just managing that. And actually, talking about the gym and mental health and things like that, having coping mechanisms to potentially not react straight away to certain things, and having that ability to maybe sit back and kind of digest that information a little bit more and be more strategical about your responses. I think that always helps. It always helps.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I think it's very translatable across many different areas of our lives. I think we deal with that regardless of industry. So I think that's really helpful. Thank you for that, Jonathan. You start to touch on, well, I can only imagine your career in law enforcement, even now the security industry. Seems like with that, Jonathan, comes a lot of stress. So I like to talk a little bit about, because it seems like you're definitely a mentally resilient person. How do you approach your mental resilience, handling stress, especially when it comes to high pressure situations?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I come across as a mentally resilient person, so thank you for that. I think that's because I've been through some pretty tough times, to be honest, Charles. But I think we'll answer that question in a second. But I think it's recognition that I haven't gone through anything that anybody else probably hasn't gone through. It's quite a normal thing for people to go through stressful situations and maybe to feel depressed every now and then and things. So I think once we recognize that actually it's quite the norm nowadays, to go through those incidents and situations. And by going through that kind of makes you more resilient. So you touched on the police. Actually, yeah, I mean there were certainly some things in the police that happened to me. So in the UK, we so I was working in a rural kind of countryside kind of area for some of my time. So that meant my backup was probably about 20 minutes away. We don't carry firearms and things. And I was actually single crewed on this occasion. And to cut a very long story short, there was kind of a ram raid that happened. And I turned up on this ram raid and I was single crewed and I pursued this car for some distance. And then as I got around a really sharp corner, so the roads in the UK are very, very country roads, very bends and everything, and trees and everything. Go around the corner and this vehicle is in reverse, comes straight up over the bonnet, smashes the windscreen, and I'm single crewed. So that was fine. He went on, and just because I am the type of person that I am, continued to pursue with the smashed windscreen and whatever. Pursued for about another 10 or 15 minutes, and then bang, again, he smashes into me, disables my car. Thankfully, the helicopter was up and things, and we managed to catch them. That was something that I didn't really think about for about, I'd say about 6 or 7 years after. And it just comes back in a flash every now and then. So there are certainly things that happen that you don't know the impact of those things until later. And I think, when you're in the police force or you're serving army personnel and things, I think that's something that you need to recognize. I think the most impactful thing for me that's made me as resilient as I am today is in my personal life. So, and I don't mind discussing it. So I'm 45, married very young, was married about 22, I think, got divorced at 30. It was at that point that I got into the gym at the age of 30. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, I divorced again for the second time. My son wasn't even 2 at the time. So very impactful things in my life, very kind of dark times, if you like. First time round, did what probably most people did, hit the drink and things. Also picked up the guitar, which was quite good, which was quite quite a great thing. I know that you're a musician as well. So yeah, you just kind of learn from it. I think the greatest learning in life is when you're at your lowest point, because that's when the greatest growth happens. So yeah, I think I'm resilient because of a number of things, mainly my experience in the police, but actually, probably most importantly, what's happened to me in my personal life. But I think that happened from a very early stage, Charles, to be honest. When I was 8, I moved over from Ireland to the UK. I hadn't seen my father for about 6 years because he'd already been over here. And I had 2 older brothers and 3 young Irish lads, strong Irish accents, not an awful lot of money as well, quite poor. In the 80s, when the IRA bombings were happening and things, it was quite a tricky time. It was quite you had to toughen up basically. And so from a very early stage, from a very early age, I was kind of immersed in that environment where, you sink or swim, really.
Yeah, you touched on so much there and I appreciate you opening up about that. I think that's what I love about doing the podcast, because I think we all kind of try to hide sometimes our vulnerability, but I think that's ultimately what really will allow others to be vulnerable. So thank you for that. What I wanted to ask you though, you mentioned there about kind of hitting your lowest point. What would you say to people? Because I think every day people are hitting their lowest point. How do you tell them to react to that? Or what would you say to them to get them to react to that? Because I think that's the issue. We hit our lowest point and we don't react. And then we end up going lower and then lower. What kind of made you say, okay, I'm making this my lowest point. Now the trajectory is going to be up?
I don't think you realize that you're probably, I think you do realize it's your lowest point, but you try not to accept it because you just keep going. I'm always saying in my posts, on LinkedIn and things, keep pushing, because that's essentially all you can do. I think the greatest tip that I can give people that are going through their lowest point at the moment is that, I always look at what is life about? If life was easy, then, what's the point of it? There must be a purpose to why we're all here, basically. And I think it's kind of like a bit of a school, a bit of an academy. We're here to learn lessons. And the deeper the lessons you learn, the more qualified you will be at the end of it. Because I'm a great believer that we either come back or we go on to another parallel universe or something. And I think the greatest skill or the greatest tip that I've learned to deal with those moments is, so I've read a number of different books. I've read a number of books like The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Manifestation, The Universe Has Your Back. And what they all describe is the greatest addiction that we have as human beings is overthinking. We're always in our head. And Bruce Lee used to say, too much mind, you're always in your head. You need to step back from it. And it's how you react. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, another great book, he said, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. So if you are in those dark moments, it's about recognizing how you're feeling. And it's about looking at the situation and trying to adapt it to make it better. So, I'm going through this. It can only get better. I'm going to be a changed person by the end of it, and I'm going to be a changed person for the better. So I think it's developing those skills, Charles, to react in the right way. Because essentially depression is just, we're doing it to ourselves, right? We're doing it to ourselves. There's no other outside forces that make you feel the way that you feel. And you might say, well, circumstances do that. Yeah, but actually, is it circumstances? So for instance, if I was to say to you, Charles, think of something that really annoys you, like it could be the war in the world that's going on at the moment. It could be your government. It could be my government. It could be absolutely anything. It could be the amount of taxes that we pay. It could be the fact that we can't be as open and expressive in our views as we used to be because of a cancel culture, So it could be anything like that. You might have children, etc., and things. And I have a boy and a girl. And it could be that, somebody wants to come along and try and harm them. So that would make you feel a certain way, right? I mean, that would infuriate you. That would probably want you to punch the wall or something. However, if you then flip it on its head and you start thinking about something that kind of fills you with joy, it could be your kids, it could be your government, right? It could be my government, I doubt it, but it could be something just really good. It could be you and I having this conversation now about mental health and trying to promote that. So the reason I did all that was because all I did was use words. I didn't do anything else. I didn't physically touch you. I didn't force you to act or think in a certain way. All I did was have a group of words in a particular order that you decided to create an emotion against. Now, that emotion was at the start anger, and at the end, hopefully some joy. Yeah. So you always have that power. And for me, it's recognizing I'm feeling really rubbish today. I've recognized the fact that I'm feeling rubbish. I'm going to change that. I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to put my running shoes on. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go outside and smell the flowers or do something. So I think that's the key. If, there's people out there going through all of these difficult times, it's recognizing, I know that I'm not feeling the best today. So I'm going to change the way I look at things, and the things I look at will change.
I really like the way you framed that. You used a word there that I don't think I've really used that word when I think about it. You say recognize. I've always used the word accept, but I like your word better, because I think when you say accept things, there comes a connotation sometimes that you're accepting how it is and what it does to you. I really like that, Jonathan, about recognizing it, because I think it allows us more power over whatever it is. So that that's really, really good, sound strategy. I think that a lot of people can use, because I think, unfortunately, all the things you mentioned about what makes us angry, especially today in this world, I think
Yeah.
everyone is going through it. So I think this is a good segue. When it comes to mental health, I obviously for those who haven't seen you on social media, you're extremely fit. Can tell that fitness is a big part of your life. What do you think the fitness aspect of your life and your commitment to fitness does to help with your mental state?
Yeah, I think it's paramount, really. I think it's the foundation because fitness. So massively into the gym. Started in the gym when I was 30 after I was divorced for the first time, and yeah, it doesn't. Lifting weights has so many benefits. It just really, it's just. I don't know why more people don't do it. So first of all, it doesn't just make you physically fit; it makes you mentally fit, and because you're always pushing yourself. Um, it could be the fear of lifting really heavy weights, like deadlifting, for instance. You know that there's a possibility there that you might get injured, but you focus, and I think actually that's what fitness does. It brings you back into the moment. It makes you focus on the task ahead of you, and you block out all of you know, the other issues in life that aren't really that important. Because actually, there's really only one thing that is important, and that's your health, your fitness. So for me, yeah, it's I think it's the greatest tool that we can have. Fitness and the gym. I was coming out of the gym the other day, and a chap said to me, I hadn't seen him for a few years, and he said, we got chatting, and he started telling me about everywhere that he aches, and his shoulders ache, and his neck aches, and his knees ache. And he was only about 4 years older than me, so I'm 45. And I was leaving the gym when I started talking to him. But then I thought, if it's this difficult now, and I'm 45, if I don't continue, what would it be like in 10 years when I'm 55, right? And it's around those types of, 55, 60 that you're going to, you might be fortunate enough to retire. So you want to be in a physical and mental state to be able to enjoy it, So I turned around and went back in the gym and did another 30 minutes because I thought I need to keep pushing all the time. I need to keep pushing. So yeah, it's the foundation really of good mental health. If we take running, for instance, Charles, so I've done 3 half marathons. I've never completed a marathon because I've always got injured. I've always gone to about 21 miles and then I've been injured and had to pull out. But I specifically run up hills or mountains. And that's because there is always going to be, I think, at least 3 stages in that run that I want to give up. The first stage is pretty easy because all of a sudden it'll just pop in your mind, I'm going to give up now. But that's just the first kind of warning sign that I'm getting tired. So you block it out and you keep going, keep pushing. You go to the second stage, and it's a little bit more difficult on the second stage, but actually, I've still got a little bit more in me. And then you keep going. And it's after you get to about the third, you should give up now, Jonathan. Then it becomes more difficult. But what that does is that conditions you to be uncomfortable. And I love that word, uncomfortable. You should be uncomfortable most of your life because that's when you're growing the most. And actually, by being uncomfortable in certain situations, which is what the gym and running does, you actually adapt to it. And you're then kind of like on autopilot. So when you're in work and you're in a board meeting or you're in a presentation, that feeling kicks in. You can actually refer to the same feeling in running and things, and you can counteract it. You can cope with it. So definitely, I'm a huge advocate for using fitness in the gym and running for mental health.
So I love the whole being uncomfortable. I mean that, I'm older than you. I'm 52, but comfort was killing me. I always tell people comfort was my coffin going back into my 40s. So it was either give up my addiction to comfort or just give up totally and be gone from this world. So I think that's really important. You really do some things that I've seen that shows about being uncomfortable. So, and this might go a little bit to where they say men will live longer than women. So you're driving along, it's really cold out. What's the whole thought behind, hey, you know what? Looks like a great idea. I'm going to strip down and jump into the freezing lake.
Some would say it's brave, some would say it's stupid, Charles, I suppose. So yeah, I was with a group of friends and a chap that was in the police with me for a number of years, and we'd gone to Ben Nevis, which is a good 9-hour drive, 8-9 hour drive from where we live in Scotland. Beautiful part of the world, phenomenal part of the world. Just yeah, it just makes you feel alive being there, really. And we've done Ben Nevis, and Ben Nevis is the tallest peak in the UK, but it's nothing spectacular. It's nothing special. And I say that respectfully because people do it. People do it every day. People do it every day. I mean, it is an amazing thing to do, and I'd highly recommend it. But from that perspective, for me, it was an amazing thing to do, but it's not supernatural. Yeah. So funny enough, on the day that we did it, there was 100-mile-an-hour winds, and people were actually getting turned away. But we weren't one of those people, because we were so far up the mountain at that stage that we didn't get the message. So I think there was only a handful of people that got to the top of Ben Nevis on that day. So we're driving back, and I'm seeing all these lakes and these locks, and they just look phenomenal. And I could hear them calling my name, you know. Hello, John, kind of thing. So I'm like, okay. So I said to the guys, I remember on the way up, we saw Loch Lomond, which is a phenomenal loch in Scotland. And I said, come on, let's do this. And actually, they all said that they weren't going to do it. But my good friend said, if you do it, I'll do it myself. So, okay. So we did exactly that. I stripped down to my underpants and got in. I must admit, it was cold. It was cold. There was snow on top of the mountains and things. And I think the water was 3-4 degrees, something like that, 3-4 degrees. Yeah, it's just great, because I think if you push yourself, you're amazed at just what you can do. And I think that's definitely something that you will carry forward in life, whether that's in work, whether that's in relationships. So I always like to feel uncomfortable, because it gives you purpose, right? I mean, Wim Hof, I'm sure you've heard of Wim Hof, and the benefits of cold plunges and things. And actually, I'm looking to buy a cold plunge kind of arbor, something for the garden. So you might unfortunately see more of those videos. So. But yeah, it's just I just love being uncomfortable, I suppose. I mean, when I was a jockey, I was always kind of when you're a professional in a sport where you don't always know if you're coming back in one piece, then there's a certain amount of adrenaline there. There's a certain amount of fear. And it's a certain amount of conquering that fear. And obviously coming into the police and doing, similar kind of environments where there's adrenaline and fear and things, I think it's just something that I've always chased, to be honest, Charles. I've always just kind of looked for it and, thrown myself into it, really.
Well, Jonathan, you are such an extremely interesting individual. I'm really, really super glad we had a chance to get on here. I wanted to end with this. I think this, to me, is always fascinating when I see folks online now. You mentioned about being uncomfortable, some of the things you've done. So how do you start to, or do you even realize this? Let me start there. Do you realize that you are kind of now inspiring other people, and that there's a responsibility that comes along with that? And how do you recognize that, accept it, and are you aware of it as you're doing these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wow. So I think to try and answer that in the best way, I think it comes down to intention. I think it comes down to, why are you doing the videos that you're doing? So for me, I'm so comfortable in my own space now. I'm so comfortable in who I've become, my integrity, what I stand for, my principles, that actually there's always a risk of putting videos on social media. But I don't really care what people think about me in that respect. If they think I'm doing it for an egotistical reason or, because I want to show off. And I have had those comments, and that's fine. It's not a problem. But for me, because I'm so comfortable in my space and I kind of want to give back to people. And you never know that you never know the reaction that you're gonna get. You don't know that you're gonna motivate people. But I think it's just my character to want to send good into the world, I suppose. And actually, I'm fitter and stronger than I've ever been. I'm in the gym, and I need to be a bit more careful now, obviously. But it's just showing people what's possible, really. And it's also, there's lots of things on social media where we should all be driving around in Lamborghinis. We should all be living in Dubai, and that's not a true, accurate reflection of what can be achieved. There's a handful of people that do that. So I suppose for me, it's just about, I'm 45 years of age, but actually I feel stronger, healthier, and more in control of my life than I ever have. And that's been because of the assistance through gym and fitness. Because David Goggins talks about discipline and things. It's all about having a purpose and little wins as well. So little wins. So even if it's getting up in the morning, making your bed, if you have a terrible day, at least you're coming back to a made bed, right? So it's just those little wins. So you don't always know that you're motivating people. It's fantastic when people like yourself reach out and want to engage with myself. It kind of justifies why I do it. I do get some good responses on there. I'm not really on any other social platform. LinkedIn is literally, what I'm on. So yeah, it's great. It's great to have the feedback. For me, it's just about just keep giving, keep pushing, sending out the messages to all of the the older guys out there that are just smashing it. Really, it's tricky when you look at the younger generation. I'm slightly worried, but yeah, you need mentors, don't you? You need role models. So where are those role models now? Where are those mentors now? I think it's very difficult for the younger generation, and I feel a duty that there needs to be a little bit of realism in the world for them. And if I can go some way to try and influence that, then great, fantastic. I'll absolutely put myself forward for that.
We need more people like you, my friend. We really do. I think you say you're trying to put good in the world. You were definitely putting good in the world. And, that good got my attention over here in the States. And I was compelled to definitely reach out. And now I'm so happy to be part of your LinkedIn network and looking forward to following you and what you do in the future. Well, Jonathan, this has been an absolute great thing for me. Like I said, selfishly, I'm always learning, and a lot of you guys that I end up having on here, they end up being my role models that will help me on those days when I'm not feeling like getting after it. Like today, after speaking to you, I know when I'm done here, I need to go get my own workout in. So always
role model, Charles. You're a role model. You've been through your journey as well. I understand that you lost a significant amount of weight and things. That's a phenomenal thing. You're motivating people out there as well, and what you're doing right now is an amazing thing. So yeah, we need to thank you for that as well. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, that means a lot, Jonathan. I appreciate it. So you mentioned LinkedIn. Is there anything else or any place else where people can see you, or is it strictly LinkedIn?
It's mainly at the moment it's LinkedIn. I'm doing some initiatives with the Security Institute in the UK. We're doing a running on empty, which is all about using running as a focus to promote good mental health and using fitness as a tool to strengthen your mind, and creating a community where people can engage and talk and open up. So we're focusing on running on empty at the moment. So maybe that's something that you might see me more on that platform. But no, I'm not a Facebook guy, and I'm not a Twitter guy, and that might sound crazy, but no, LinkedIn will do. LinkedIn's fine.
Well, I'll make sure to have a link for LinkedIn in the show notes here so people can easily get a hold of you. Well, Jonathan, thanks. I wish you nothing but success in whatever you do. Thank you again. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Jonathan, thanks.
Fantastic. It's been delightful. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Thanks for the support. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Bye.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening. And remember, never hibernate on your goals.